So this is a koha-US circulations meeting, December 7th, 2021. And got a few topics that we'll talk about. And definitely if you have any that you didn't send to me or just you thought of, let me know. I actually put the first one down, and I was actually wondering how people handle their discarding their materials. Do you guys use your withdrawn status, or do you use like the damage status or the loss status, or something different to take material out of Koha? Or do you just delete it? I mean, that's always an option too, right?
I can speak on that for us. So I'm in a consortium, and I think other libraries do it differently, but if they're designated for withdrawal, we just delete it. Some of us have the permissions to do that, and if the coordinators are doing weeding or what have you, they say, oh, delete. But I think some other libraries might change it to, was that the status withdrawn or something like that, and then I don't know how they handle it from there, but we just delete it right away.
Okay.
For us, it depends on the library. And some of them, if they've been missing for a really long time, we just delete them. We finally delete them. But we have things marked, withdrawn, damaged, missing, lost. I need to run a report of all of those and find out, okay, how much of all of these do we have? And is it worth keeping, or should we just go ahead and say, it's been lost long enough, let's just delete the record?
Yeah, let me, sorry, Jason.
No, I was just going to say that it depends on the situation for us. So like if it's a weeding project, like they've gone out, they've pulled the card of books and they're ready to get rid of them, then we use the batch deletion tool for that. For lost and missing items, we kind of have a little sort of sequence of events. So like if they can't find something on the holds queue, they'll mark it missing for maybe a month. And then we encourage them to look for those at the end of the month. And if they find them, check them in, it takes the status off. If they don't find them, then they transition it over to full-blown lost. And then from there, it's kind of up to our libraries how long they wait to go in and just delete everything. We use the withdrawn status more for temporarily removal from circulation. So we use withdrawn for things that are damaged. We don't use the damage status at all because it seemed redundant. If a patron brings back a DVD without a disc and it accidentally gets checked in, we'll withdraw that because we need to take it out of circulation, but just for a little bit. So we use withdrawn a little differently, and we use sort of just the lost statuses to keep track of things that eventually need to make their way out of the catalog.
Thanks. That's really interesting. The withdrawn for like damaged. I'm gonna actually write that down, because what we do now is for like anything that needs to be, that's damaged or missing pieces, we check it out to like an account we call one review or one repair. And the problem with that is that this stuff stays on there forever, and so fines accrue on the account, and I have to go in there and waive it, and it's a big mess. So that is not a bad idea, and I might have to steal it or harvest it from you, Jason. So thanks. So our thing is that we use the way that we're doing it right now, and I'm just wondering if there's like a better way. And we set everything to discard using the damage status, and the reason why is that sometimes things get missed on the shelves, so that when someone tries to come and check it out, if it's set to withdrawn, they can't check it out. And so if it's set to damage discard, they can check it out, but when it comes back in through our AMH, it goes to our sort bins. And that's kind of how we do it. The other thing is that we have, I think there's something about Colorado law that we have to keep records of lost or thrown away materials for a certain amount of years before we can delete them. So we do have a lot of stuff in our catalog that's discarded, but it's, you know, 2 or 3 years old. So just trying to reinvent the mousetrap, I think, with this project. But
Yeah, and I mean, with Koha, you still got that data. Even after you discard it, you can query that sort of thing in the deleted items table. The one issue we've run into with that is that you don't get accurate times. No, the timestamps get reset sometimes. So if you're relying on a timestamp to run your report on deleted items, if something changes in the upgrade that touches that table, then you can no longer rely on that timestamp. So withdrawing it first is an option because there's a withdrawn on date that gets attached to it. So yeah, it gets tricky when you're trying to report on those deleted items if you're taking them out entirely, but they're not entirely gone. I guess that was the point I was making. So we do rely on that information to an extent. For our annual reporting, we'll run lists of books deleted using the deleted items table, where it sounds like maybe you have that information still in your live catalog, and it's probably easier to report on because it is in your live catalog, just marked discarded.
yeah, I'm thinking about next year, seeing if we can convince our finance or set out a procedure that we can delete it after, you know, 3 years instead of 6. But I don't know the specific laws, and that's something we'll have to look into. But if I can convince them that it stays, you know, in the deleted table, we might be able to get rid of it sooner, which is useful. So that's awesome. All right, Kim actually had another topic, and she was hoping to get some feedback on the curb tool, or who's using it. Or...
Yeah, the plugin, the curbside pickup plugin, if anybody was using it.
I had it installed. None of my libraries really picked up on it, and then it broke. And I knew that my libraries weren't using it because it broke and no one complained. So we ended up just turning it off. So I don't have any real feedback on it besides that.
When you say broke, you mean that there was a bug or something in Koha, or was it something like on your end?
Well, I had the plugin installed, and then I think Koha upgraded or something. And then when you went to use the tool from the patron page, it just didn't work anymore. So like, I think I needed to update the plugin again, but since no one was using it, I just didn't. But like it completely stopped working. Like it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do at all.
I looked at it in the beginning when they first announced it during the pandemic. And at the time I thought that, boy, there are a lot of steps involved. And I don't know if, because we weren't really open, but we're still doing some curbside stuff. So we took a pass on it because we also had LibCal. So we were scheduling appointments through LibCal, but we no longer have LibCal. And while we are open, there's a vaccine mandate going into effect in January. So I anticipate there'll be a lot more of a curbside need because people aren't able to come into buildings on campus, etc. So that's why I was kind of looking at it. But all I really want to do is set a time for the person to come, and then we can just say, yes, they came, that type of thing. So even if we need to print something for them, it might not even be a book, to pick up a book. So that's why we're exploring that.
So we actually installed it and started training on it to get it to use it. And there were some issues with, I think what we wanted is that the tool, I might be misremembering this, but the tool didn't check out material, or no, it checked out the material and then it just kind of wiped the screen. So if someone came in looking for their books, you took them, you checked them out using the tool, and then if you gave it to the person, there was a chance that you might have missed one of their books and accidentally checked them all out to the person, if I'm remembering correctly. But ultimately, we, like you said, Kim, it was just too many steps, and we went with a different service called Communico, and that's worked out really well. But yeah.
Thank you.
And if you mentioned maybe just a simpler solution. I know that Christopher Brandon did something before. Sorry, stuff popping up on my screen. Before the curbside plugin was fully realized, he had done some work to just add a slip using jQuery, and that's in the jQuery library. So I put that link in the chat. But it might be an alternative, I guess, if you're not wanting to go through all those steps, but want some sort of functionality there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So does anybody else have any other topics? Those were some great conversations. So. Nothing.
I have a small one, and I don't totally know how to. The question I'm trying to ask. So
Just work it. Just go through it. Go for it.
It's dealing with patron password username accounts. Some of our libraries use it, some of our libraries don't. Right now we have where they can use that, and they can also use their Google email for our organization. However, the consortium, half the patrons do not belong to the organization, so they can't use their Gmail passwords. I wanted to know, how can we give the patrons the ability to control what their username and password is in their Koha account instead of the local librarian? Or is that even an option? Like, is it only the local librarian has to be the one that just gives you this thing and you're stuck with it for the rest of your life until you email the librarian and say, I want it changed to X, Y,
No.
Z?
So part of our encouraged workflow is whenever a staff member sets up a username and password for the patron, they get like a dummy password, and then they're encouraged to go home and change it themselves. And that is a system preference. I think, yeah, it's this one. OpacPasswordChange. You can set that to allow, and then when they use that username and password you set up for them to log into the OPAC, there's one of the tabs on their account is change password, and they can go in there and change it themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a notice that goes out, an email notice that says, yeah, and that gives you that you can include the link in there, and it asks you to request to change that password. I think you have to, when you click on that system's preference, does that automatically set up the email, or is that something you have to gear
I
up
think
to?
that might be the other one I just put in there, OPAC reset. So that one's the one that lets patrons use the kind of, I think it turns on the forgot your password link, and then that sends the email for password recovery. So I think they're two separate things.
Yeah, we have Discovery, so we don't use this a lot, but I was messing with the notices and the triggers, and I noticed that one. So
Okay. So the OPAC reset password affects the notices, and the OPAC password change allows, actually they'd still have to get a notice that has the username and password that I gave them, and then they click the link and they change it.
There's another notice. It's called account details. And I think they get, so I think they get the account details email if you sign them up and they have an email in their primary email address thing. When you make their account, they get the account details notice.
Okay.
That may be wrong, but that's my guess and recollection.
I will, the I finally have a local library that I'm now over in addition to helping the consortium. And I've just migrated us into Koha. And so now I'm working on setting up the username, password accounts. And I'm like, all right, I want to get all this instead of having, 50 to 100 people come knock on my door asking me about their password. I'd rather like send out an email and let Koha. I would rather Koha be the secretary instead of me. Okay. Thank you.
Trying to remember if there's anything else involved there, but I guess once you dig into it, you'll find out.
And I'm still learning how to set up notices in Koha. I feel like I'm much more proficient in cataloging than in circulation. Because I don't use circulation that often. So this will I will learn more than I ever wanted to learn in doing this.
Yeah, one of the things I realized recently, it was a minor, kind of a dumb mistake, is that when I was looking at the triggers, I thought the triggers were the days after the last notice was sent. And it's actually the days after the item is overdue. So I made that mistake and I was like, oh, I should have seen that, because you set it up and then you just forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at that recently and fixed that. So learn from my error, please.
Yeah, I don't remember which meeting I went to. Someone pointed out to make the notices, the due date, one of the notices you need to be, the overdue notice needs to be before the due date, or you end up getting a lot of notices. Because you get one that it's due, one that it's overdue, one that it's, the automatic renewal, one that it's renewed. And like the patron doesn't want 3 or 4 emails. They just want their book renewed.
Yeah, that makes sense. They don't want to be notified that it's overdue and then that it got auto renewed.
Yeah, our first notice, we have that auto renew, and when it stops and we can't renew anymore, it messages it on the renewal notice, and then we wait 14 days for the first overdue, and then the next one is 30 days, and then the final one is, I think, 51 days. And so that's how we kind of handle it, but it seems to work out fine. I mean, I haven't heard any complaints about that. So does anybody else have any questions or topics they want to bring up?
I feel like I had something several weeks ago, but I don't know what it was and I didn't write it down.
Yeah, whenever I come across something, I always try and write it down. And it's like one of my problems is that a lot of the questions I have tend to start to bleed over into like admin development kind of stuff. So there is, yeah, and all the stuff that I've got written down right now, except for that, the one that I came up with is development. So.
I think the biggest like post upgrade complaint I've gotten circulation wise is the way that the patron search works. And there's a bug that I'm following that I think got patched that I can share related to that.
Is it a 500 error? Is that what you're saying?
No, so the way it redirects is different. So before, if you did an account, like a patron name search in the checkout box in the top, it would take you to their checkout screen if there was only one result. So like you typed in their exact name to search for their account, it would take you to their checkout screen. Now it takes you to their details screen, so then you have to click to the checkout screen, and that seems to be a bug. So, which is good news because I got lots of complaints about that. The other change that it did, which it was in the spirit of like speed and efficiency, is it used to come up to its own little list of search results if you typed in a vague search term on the patron search, and then give you a list of things. Now it goes directly over to the patron details, or the patron search, instead of that extra list of things, which is an improvement because you get all the results and it's faster, but it's throwing some people off. So those are kind of the big patrony things.
Yeah, there was a change in the transits or the transfers that just kind of thrown off our catalogers, where you used to be able to check in an item and ignore the transfer, but it would trap the hold. And now instead of, they just have it just totally ignores everything if you click on ignore. And so you have to use the check-in right above the transfer tool to get it to work. And it's just, it changes the workflows, and it kind of, threw things off a little bit for a couple of days. So, but we're getting a 500 error whenever we do like a cataloging search and we're using our barcodes, and our barcodes start with a 0. I think that's the problem. That's a really weird one. There's a bug about it, but the bug is weird because it has, if the barcode starts with a letter, and that trips off that bug, but this one's just a 0 trips it off with us. So
I'm glad I don't have that problem. That sounds terrible.
it bothers the catalogers more than anybody else, but it's still a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm happy with the upgrade. It's a lot faster.
Yeah, I think ours went fairly smooth once it happened. The main issue we had was that it didn't happen the first try. But after that, I don't think I had any major issues. Just a few complaints here and there. I'm trying to think. It's been about a month, a little less than a month now for us, so it's not as fresh.
I was talking about the searching in the catalog and patrons and stuff like that. It's faster than it originally was, and we get results a lot quicker, which I think is pretty cool. So.
And we like right before this upgrade switched to Elastic, so it's kind of like we experienced some definite speed and accuracy improvements with the switch to Elastic right before we upgraded to the current version of Koha. So it's all kind of been a nice holistic improvement of what we're offering. I'm gonna be quiet now.
We haven't actually upgraded. We switched to Elastic a few weeks ago, but we haven't done, the only thing that's been upgraded so far is our test server. So I'm actually going to go there after the meeting and start doing some searches to see if I notice what you guys have just mentioned. So thank you.
Yeah, it might be a data error on our side. We've got some really funky records, but we've noticed that it was that 500 error was in the searching. Yeah, well, let me see where it is. So it's cataloging, and it's cataloging search, I think. Let me just try it. And then we found it in another place, but let me make sure about this one first. Yep, it's in cataloging, and it's the cataloging search. That's where we get the 500 error.
And that's when you search on a barcode, or is that what you said?
Yeah, on a barcode, and ours become 0, and I think that's what's tripping it up. So,
okay.
And we have another where it's in the transfers to receive, and it's just one branch that we have kicks off that 500 error as well. So. Anyway, anybody else? Any other topics?
Just to eliminate that it's a system, this might be a system preference problem, and I don't know. In my OPAC, so I have 2 accounts. I have a patron account and then my super librarian account. My patron account credentials, I cannot log into the OPAC. But I can use my super librarian. Do y'all have potential what might be happening?
Can anyone log into the OPAC that doesn't have permissions? Like,
See, I don't know. If I use the Google email, like logging in by my Google email, I can get in. And I almost feel like I've probably logged in with my email using my super librarian account. And I don't want to log in using my email on my patron account because I'm wanting to keep that a pure, this is what it's like.
and is it giving you like an error or
Not
just
giving me
a,
an error. Well, it's just, I keep getting on the login screen. It doesn't.
Doesn't go all the way through, just gets the circle of doom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird.
Okay. I almost wonder if it's a bug. We're on 2011. And or if what I have discovered with upgrades is depending on what you had in your system preferences before, doesn't mean it does the same thing in the upgrade. And so you sometimes have to go back in and tweak some stuff. And I'm wondering if I'm needing to tweak a system preference that could be causing that.
yeah, and we don't use the Google login stuff. So it sounds like maybe that's causing some sort of interference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm almost wondering if it is because we have that turned on, it's not, I either need to turn an additional something on to make it work, because you could do it before the upgrade, it worked. It's after the upgrade that it stopped working, and so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to, something change, a definition probably changed somewhere.
And I assume you've tried resetting that username and password on, and that doesn't, okay.
Do you have any other accounts that are, they're the same, like same first name, surname, and different privileges? I was just thinking that there might be some conflict when it's trying to figure out which one of you guys is logging in.
They have different, like the username and passwords are different.
Right.
It's just I have 2 personal accounts and I really don't want to have a third to keep up with. I can maybe ask some other people to try logging in to the OPAC. You can log in, like my library staff can log into the staff interface. That works.
Right.
And I can use the credentials to log in the staff interface. It's something to do with the OPAC.
So do you know of any other staff that have that kind of, like, they have the personal account and the user account and they're having the same trouble?
No, I have not heard of anyone else having that trouble. But we don't have, a lot of our patrons, if they run into problems, they're not used to someone being on the other end of the email. So they got in the habit of not really, oh, well, I can't log in. Like they just go without.
Yeah.
instead of emailing, we can fix this.
Yeah.
We're trying to gain that reputation back of, no, you can email us your problems. We're here to help you. It's harder to get it back once you've lost it.
Yeah.
Have you tried making just like a new dummy patron and logging in with that without the Google stuff, just to see if it
No.
works?
Just if it works for a new patron. I have not.
Yeah.
So you use their the Google accounts as their username, and then they have the library card as well.
So not all of our libraries have library cards.
Okay.
So now we do have the self checkout turned on, but I finally got that to work. Oh, but did I get that to work before the upgrade? I'm not sure when the upgrade happened. So, because that wasn't working, and then I finally got it to work, and I haven't checked it again to make sure it's still working. I was wanting to have my patrons know about the library in November, and it didn't happen. And so I'm like, January is just fine. So now I'm trying to make sure everything's working for January when I tell everybody about it.
You didn't happen to use your non-Google account as the self-checkout patron, did you? Because that'll mess things up.
I have logged into the self checkout using that. So my patron account, I have logged into the self checkout.
But
'Cause I
like
checked-
as a patron or as the staff user that runs the self-checkout machine?
As a patron.
Okay. Because if that account is the one that's set up to run the self-checkout, like that's what you log in to run the self-checkout, you give it a special permission, and that special permission can throw off its ability to log in as a regular patron, I think.
Yeah, no, that I think I created a circulation,
Okay.
jar circulate, a LAT circulation library account. And that's what the self checkout attaches to. Okay. I will keep investigating. I just thought, since you're here, you guys might have encountered the problem. But
there is a system preference, which I assume you have on, that allows people to log in to the OPAC. I guess you could check that.
okay.
But if it was working before, it would have had to have been switched, and I lost it. I don't know what it is.
Okay. Yeah, on my to-do list, either December or January, is go through our system preferences and make sure everything stayed kosher.
Yeah, so that one is OPAC user login, which lets patrons log into their accounts. But I would guess if that one's not turned on, you would have heard about it by now.
Man, I'm really spoiled with Discovery because it's all the troubles that you guys are having. It seems like I'm sorry, I don't hear that.
We're looking into Aspen. We've been I talked with PTFS Europe this morning to see, we're considering Aspen because of the electronic resources whole circulation, OPAC, all that fun stuff.
It's really sweet with the overdrive and the cloud and Hoopla. That checkout feature is really nice. And now they're thinking that they're gonna be able to get us statistics on that stuff too. So that's also really, really cool. So
That's good to know because it's on our wish list, but that would be one more reason to move because we can't get stats on our electronic resources right now.
yeah, it's a work in progress, but Mark, the guy that develops it, is really responsive, and when he says something's coming along, it usually is. So. All right. Does anybody else have any topics? Well, we actually had some great conversations, so that's awesome. But if there aren't any other things to talk about, I can call this meeting to a close. So going once, going twice. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank everybody for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Bye.